engineer Looi to talk about demonstration projects by, of course, the demonstration manager himself of BSEEP.
Excuse me. How do you? Okay. Yeah. This is the last presentation before you go back. Unfortunately, if you go back now, the jam just starting. But really unfortunate. So I will try to make it fast. 60 slides. I really don't have to go into detail because the slides, there are a lot of information there which you can download and read at your leisure. So what I will do is I'll just highlight the salient point. Now, the focus of my presentation is to actually come back down to earth. You have heard about the big picture, about government policies, about what you can do with, you got even the bank, So now maybe, you are the guy down there, you have this building, and you are convinced on EE, but you don't know what to do, So based on the work I have done in BSEEP on the component 5, this basically will actually, you can learn, EE is not only for the big boys, it's not only for the high-tech guys, it's for everyone. I'll skip this. Okay, quick explanation of what is C5. C5 is actually, we try to catalyze demonstration project in EE so that you're convinced, that it is workable, it's not difficult, and we really have this kind of 4 initiatives. Proactive means somebody has an idea to do EE, but he do not know how to go about it. So we have 2 programs. One is energy simulation, the other one is building energy audit. So in these 2 kind of work, we can actually show you, we will study your building and we can tell you what you can do actually. The other one is active intervention, meaning you're already convinced, you know what you're going to do, and you want to do it, you want to spend the money. Because from the proactive intervention, you have all the solutions, you have the economic solution, you have the technical solution, and now you actually want to implement, and that's where the active intervention come in, and we give grant, unfortunately for you guys, the grant is closed down. Grant means we actually give money to people. The whole idea is actually to catalyze. Sometimes some of the grant, we are trying to actually encourage maybe certain kind of new technology, in EE. And from there, we can actually learn. Now, with this, we hope maybe there are lessons to be learned for those who are in the MASCO industry, those in the ECP industry, and even the banks, MDB, if you are actually going to finance EE project, we have a mass of information and data. Which tells you, do you need to appoint an expert right from day one? There are certain things, you can actually know. Okay, we had actually something like 20 over project under C5. If you look at those colored codes, green is grant, we give money, Orange one is I have to do the work, which is expert advisory service. Sometimes it's simulation, to do simulation. Sometimes it is based on my experience in the industry, I can actually come up with a quick report. Then you have the blue, building energy audit. And you have the red simulation. We actually appoint expert to do simulation. And later I will show you in case study what actually you can achieve, what are the tools you can do. You know? So if you actually look at this figure, we also have another benchmark. We call it, you know, the kilogram, you know. For every ringgit you spend, how much carbon abatement? And from there, at the end of this presentation, you see a SWOT analysis, you know, which tells you, you know, what is the cheap thing I can do which give me a high impact, or the most expensive measure which gives you low impact. So, you know, a SWOT chart, high impact, low cost. And we can actually plot where, for example, lighting retrofitting stands. And these are some of the information which will be very useful for you if you are in this industry. And it also goes to contractors too. You know, actually, you know, I always say the front line in EE is actually not the MESCO people, you know. It's actually the contractors like Dato Lee there, you know, the electrical contractors, you know. They are the first one to actually face the client who is convinced on EE but don't know how to go about it. Okay, you want to buy a car. You have the bank who's willing to lend you the money to buy a car. But you have no idea, you know, what kind of car you want. Maybe you don't need a car, bicycle can do. Or a car is not enough, you need a lorry, you know. So, similarly in building energy, right? Especially in retrofit. In a lot of cases, you know, in my work, you know, I actually encounter a lot of clients who are keen on E, but they just don't know what to do, you know. So the natural reaction is to, you know, you have heard of this, what do you call it? Investment grade audit. And as a practitioner, I'm actually not a building service company. My main line is in traditional design consulting. So sometimes clients do ask me, you know, no, they want to do E, what can I do? And if you actually do a investment grade audit, it costs a lot of money. So sometimes we will do a preliminary assessment. What we call, sometimes it might involve a walkthrough assessment. If you are an expert, if you're experienced enough, no, if you're an expert, you have a lot of rule of thumb, you know. I remember somebody say, you know, rule of thumb, your thumb get chopped off, you know. And I think I beg to differ because if you're an expert, you work by rule of thumb. Because you have designed so much that straight away you know, oh, it's going to cost 200 ringgit per square feet to build this kind of building. And so the first one really is not the investment grade audit because that's very expensive. It's actually, you do a preliminary assessment. You know, you go and ask the client, give me 6 months of electricity bill. How big is your building? You know, where is it? What kind of building is it? And if you're experienced enough, for example, if you know the building is, say, more than, say, a certain size, like 10,000 meters square, then you know straight away maybe the aircon is going to be like, you know, 300 ton, you know, 400 ton, you know, just very rough, you know. And expert, if you design a lot, you know this kind of rule of thumb. And you can actually gauge, you know, and if, let's say the building is, the first thing is the building is more than 15 years old. And you know for a fact, if they haven't changed the chiller, later you will see, you know, I'll tell you about chillers, their efficiency is actually quite low. So this is really how you do it. From preliminary assessment, you know, just by, without having to do a very detailed audit, just by walking through the building, if you know what's the aircon, and if you look at his electricity bill, you know, let's say for 6 months or even 1 year, you can have a pretty good gauge. For example, as you know, most typical office building has a benchmark of maybe 200 kilowatt hour per meter square. And just by looking at his electricity bill, and if you have his area, the gross floor area, you can actually find out if you find out that later in our work, we're actually collecting a lot of data on what is the BI. And you find out that his energy index is about, say, 250. Straight away, without even going to a little bit more detail, you will know maybe I can do something to reduce it by from 250 to 200. And this is a given, it's quite confirmed, So this basically how you go it. These are detailed on all the procedure, which I have actually listed out. What are the methodology? You do a walkthrough survey, preliminary assessment, a walkthrough survey, and EPC is a bit difficult. In the traditional tender, you have all the information and then you tender. But in energy retrofit, you really don't know what you need to do, so you can't call a tender. So you may get an expert to do a assessment. Now, sometimes, in my case, I used to do it for free, like no obligation. I do a quick survey and I give him a quick report. And if the client accepts, then we move on to the next phase, which will involve money. So, yeah. Detail you can read at your leisure. Next, you must also have an understanding. If I'm going to do, let's say, a building audit, energy audit, what are the system I can look at? This is not only for EPC experts, it's for anybody, including electrical contractors, electrical engineers who have experience in the building industry. Just by looking at this is a list that the tick there, level 1 survey, level 2 survey, level 3. Level 1 survey I would consider as a walkthrough survey. A level 3 would be an investment grade survey. Investment grade survey typically can cost you anywhere from 10 ringgit per square feet to 5 ringgit per square feet. So it's quite a lot. So these are the list of all the stuff you can look at. As a building practitioner, a lot of ESCO have no idea about what we call passive design. For example, building heat island. This building heat island is particularly a Malaysian issue. Why a Malaysian issue? Because we are not a highly dense country. Our population is not very high, so our building tend to be low rise. And because it's low rise, we tend to have a lot of landscape, And if you look at some of the campus, I remember, I was in Kampar, and I was looking at that building, And at 3 o'clock, with all those pavement, you can feel the heat radiating from the pavement, And because the heat was radiating from the pavement, and that administrative block 4-story, because they were using what we call postmodernist design, a lot of glazing, the aircon is actually very high. If you look at Perbadanan Putrajaya, Putrajaya, just now you saw that building, same thing also. So how can you actually, you can actually reduce the aircon load just by looking at heat island effect. Maybe, take away all those, put more plants. Instead of those hard concrete paver, you change it to something else. So, yeah. So I'm going to skip this. You can read at your leisure. Okay, understanding technology. What kind of aircon? This chart is actually very interesting because, as you know, in Malaysia, cooling takes up something like 50% of more energy used in a building. And the gray chart talks about all those chillers which are manufactured before in the last millennia, before 2000. The green one are the new chillers. And you can see, it's really counterintuitive. It says all those new chiller, they're actually, COP means the efficiency, chiller performance. For example, if chiller, now a chiller is like a heat pump. It pumps heat energy from one place to the other. So for example, if a chiller has a COP of 6, for every input of 1 unit of energy into the pump, it will pump 6 units of energy across. That's the meaning. So you can see the new chiller, the green ones, says that at what we call part loading, the chiller actually more efficient. Whereas traditional old chiller, at part loading, their efficiency are actually very low. Now this actually has a lot of implication because especially in building where for example, like a shopping complex, loadings are very variable. And because it's very variable, if I'm using a traditional chiller, the efficiency is very low at part loading. Whereas the new chiller is the other way around, it's not so efficient at 90% loading, but it's actually more efficient at something like 50% loading. And you can see from here, okay, this is what we call a magnetic chiller. Okay, you can see from here, you see the COP, you see that centrifugal screw, that's the new one. You can see that at 20% loading, its COP goes up. So that's really counterintuitive. Whereas the blue one is what we would expect of traditional chiller. Which means, just now we were saying what's the benchmark for building. I would say if I'm going to talk about benchmark for building, if you design any building after 2000 or 2010, it is a given that your chiller COP will be a lot higher than what you have designed. Back before 2000, typical chiller 300 ton and what will typically might have 5 and below. Confirmed, we have did a lot of audit and we found that 300 ton chiller and their COP was only 4, and we can easily get a chiller COP of 5.5 and 6. So that's a huge, okay, case study. Because the audit we did are supposed to be confidential, so I cannot name names, but you probably can guess which building is it. It's in Perak. But it also actually tell you what is the typical BI you're going to have, and that's your starting point. If you are an so call yourself an energy expert, you try to find out what's the BI. And that's what we found, okay, government office building. You can see, T8, most office building, T8 is still the predominant lighting. This is from the audit report. This is the trending of the kilowatt. Looks like February, January is a low month. February, January. This is a daily load profile. Okay. Now, what is actually important is this. Yeah. Typical office building. If you're a practitioner, that's the first thing you must know. Aircon anywhere from 50%, because this building is a very inefficient building. That's why the aircon is 69%. The lighting is 24%, and this is a central chiller system. Now, if I'm going to focus on the cooling system, because some of the things you can do very easily is, change the chiller. What happens if I change the chiller? Now, chiller is about 50%. It's a given. Any building with central chiller system, aircon is going to be about 50%. The chiller is going to be about 50%. So if I'm going to change my chiller from a COP 4 to COP 5, you can pretty much calculate what should be your energy saving without having to do a very detailed IGA. So that's the first thing you must understand. And lighting is pretty consistent, you know. Lighting is about 20 to 30%. Later you see another building is the same. Now, based on this, you can see it's pretty much confirmed most government building will have about anywhere from 180. And we actually, back in 2010, I did a quick survey. As usual, it's a free survey. And we found that FPGA was 189, you know. So it's really fits in with the trend. Yeah. So this just now that one was based on gross floor area. This on aircon area. Now, if you're doing this is just an example. If you're doing you're going to do an ECP. You need to do what we call regression analysis, because your contract will actually takes into account what are the factors which will change, which you use to calculate, and it is normally included inside the ECP contract, and that's how you do. You determine what are the factors. Maybe it's the cooling degree day. You know? Cooling degree day. You define the cooling degree day is what is the outside temperature and what is the cutoff temperature. Maybe your cutoff temperature is 24 degrees. So any day which is more than 24 degrees, then there is a cooling degree day. You know? And based on this, by regression analysis, you can come up with a formula, something like this. So this is just one example. From the audit, you can actually have an idea. For example, easiest, especially any building more than 10 years old, replace chiller plant. If I go to the building, the first thing I ask the management, when did you change the chiller? Because in a lot of cases, you know, they probably might have changed the chiller. So you might, you know, but there are some cases like just now that one in Perak, 15 years old, you know, the chiller is so old that career, they say no more spare part, you know. Then I said, how do you survive, you know? They said they have to change, no choice, you know. So it was not an EE issue, you know? And if you are into this, that's the first thing you want to conclude. You can see this payback, how much. The cheapest to do is really is lighting, you know, lighting. Yeah, so, and if we do all this measure, it's going to take cost something like 2.18 million. You're going to reduce your BI by 36%, from about 180, 36% to about 150, you know. Okay, next case, don't look at that logo, but you should guess what's this building. This is also a 20 years old building, somewhere in the mid-90s, I believe, you know, mid-90s. We did the audit again. Now, this is different because instead of a central chiller system, a lot of government building, a lot of marginalist building are like that. They don't have central chiller. They have a mix of package unit, split unit, and so, and that's what you have, you know. And you can see because of that. Okay, this is lighting, as you see, T8 is the, okay, you are actually interested in that. Cooling is 43%, you know. Why this one so low, you know? You must understand, the first building, 180, almost 80 to 90% of the space are pure office, whereas this one, for this particular building, something like 30% of the space are not actually office. They are like meeting room. They are like auditorium, which is used only once a week or once a month. And that's why their energy index is so low. So yeah, again, building cooling is about 50%. Okay, I've only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to skip. You can read that all at your leisure. These are all actually, you know, all this actually percentage is very useful for you. Actually, if you are actually doing assessment. Okay, and again, these are actually the measure we recommended. You can actually look at that, and this example can actually point out to you if you're doing something along the same, whether you're on the right track. Now this a bit interesting. 189. That is actually a given for government because by the time after we do the report, they will take at least 3 to 4 years before they act on the report because that's the SOP. Because when we spoke to them 210, they say they council accept our report, but when they ask for money, they have to ask from the council, and council, when they ask 2 million, council will say give you only 500,000, so they have to do piecemeal. It's a given, So this is particularly interesting because we wanted to look at facade building envelope retrofitting. So we did a simulation, and this is the result. There are something like 800 meters square, 900 meters square of glazing. If I because all these are single glaze, and these are what I can do, if I put a glazing of, if I just do tinting, for example, tinting, SC, 46%, but it's still a single glaze. Then I can have energy saving so much. And you can actually calculate, based on 9,000, single glazing is 60 ringgit per square meter. So if I, 6 ringgit per, 60 ringgit, yeah. So if it is double glazing, or if it's existing, you probably can't do double glazing. Maybe you want to do a coating to tint it. And that was actually the purpose of the study. Yeah, next one, this is a case study. This a shop lot typical. 50% of office space are small office like this. So we said, typically they're split unit. So we said, why don't we change it to a VRV system? And this is a study we did. Roof insulation, and we actually run some simulation. Again, I can't tell you what's the name here. No? Okay, so we said if we change it to VRV, what would be the saving? And we got this kind of figure. Okay, you will find that office building like that, the BI is actually very low. It's 110, low energy building, 100, In fact, when I had a mass of data for most of the building in Sirim, and they're 100, only split unit, 100, no high tech, nothing high tech. Why? Sometimes you don't need all those high tech things. You must understand building usage. You just put the split unit lah. Kalau dia keluar, you tutup itu split unit lah. No? But if you put central, and some building, for example, like this building, because they are contractors, they say half the time the staff dia keluar, keluar tutup lah. No? If you put a central unit, it's still running. So no matter how efficient, it's still running. So that's the lesson maybe we learn from there. And this is actually what we learn, and we have a kilogram per ringgit, intensity. If we change all to split unit and we put roof insulation, what can we achieve? Okay, case 5. You should be able to guess what building. We actually did the energy audit, but we want to study, if we replace the chiller with a high efficient chiller. But it has remember I was talking about chillers with profile which is efficient at low loading. And we actually crunched the number. So those of you who are interested, I actually developed this software calculator. You can, if you have your load profile, and then you have the COP profile of the chiller, you can calculate, I can calculate, you see, what is the saving if I change the chiller to a COP6, but of a certain profile. And this figure will change if your COP profile of your chiller change. And why this is important, in fact, that's where also MDV should be very aware, because just by changing high efficient chiller without actually looking at the load profile may actually be very dangerous. You may find that the savings may not be achievable because there's a correlation between the COP profile and the actual load profile of the building. And that's what this study attempts to do. Okay, this actually, okay, chiller loading after replacement, chiller loading before replacement.
Engineer Looi, I'm afraid that's all the time that we have for now. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give him a big round of applause. Engineer Looi Hip Pugh, thank